King Harris went in for brain surgery, but what happened inside that hospital shocked everyone. The FBI is now involved, and the truth is finally coming out. This is a story no family wants to face. A story of fear, regret, and a final message that has left millions holding their breath. King Harris, the son of hip-hop icon T.I. and Tiny, has lived his entire life in the spotlight. But nothing could prepare his family, his fans, or even his critics for what just happened. Before going into the most terrifying moment of his life, a risky brain surgery, King Harris delivered a final message that has left everyone in shock, in tears, and holding their breath about whether those words might be his last. From the moment news broke that King had been rushed into surgery, the internet went into overdrive. Social media exploded with speculation, fans begged for updates, and thousands of people who had once laughed at King's wild antics suddenly found themselves praying for him. This wasn't about a viral fight video or another reckless move. This was about life and death. The story quickly shifted from gossip to tragedy, and in the middle of it all was a young man who decided to speak from the heart when it mattered most. King has always been known for his larger-than-life personality. He grew up in a mansion, surrounded by fame, cameras, and endless opportunities. Yet despite that, he always seemed restless, angry, or misunderstood. From viral Instagram lives to run-ins with the law, King created an image of himself as rebellious and fearless. But now, as he lay in a hospital bed preparing for surgery that could change, or even end his life, the mask slipped. What came through instead was a vulnerable, scared, but deeply honest young man who finally showed the world who he really was. The events leading up to this moment had already worried his family. Reports of King being involved in dangerous situations, altercations behind bars, and even hospitalizations had sparked rumors that his health and safety were on the line. T.I. and Tiny had done their best to protect their son, but there are some things that even the most powerful parents can't control. By the time doctors informed the family that surgery was necessary, the mood shifted from concern to pure terror. This was no longer about discipline or behavior, it was about survival. As King lay in the hospital, machines beeping softly in the background, he decided to record one final message. It wasn't planned, it wasn't polished, and it certainly wasn't filtered. It was raw emotion, the kind that can only come when someone stares down the possibility of never waking up again. For those who heard it, it felt less like a speech and more like a confession, a release of years of pain and pressure that he had carried in silence. In the message, King admitted that he hadn't always lived the right way. He spoke about mistakes he'd made, people he'd hurt, and moments when he let his pride get in the way of doing what was right. For the first time, instead of doubling down on his defiance, he expressed regret. He admitted that much of his reckless behavior came from trying to escape the shadow of his father, trying to prove that he was his own man in a world that constantly compared him to someone else. That honesty cut deep, because it revealed a side of King that most people had never seen. But the part of his message that truly broke people down was when he turned to his family. His voice cracked as he spoke about his mother, Tiny, thanking her for always being there even when he didn't deserve it. He begged her not to blame herself, telling her that none of this was her fault. He then turned to his father, T.I., and said words that nobody expected to hear. That despite all their fights and disagreements, he loved him deeply, and he was sorry for not always showing it. In that moment, King wasn't a defiant teenager or a social media star. He was just a son, terrified of leaving his parents behind. For T.I., those words hit like a sledgehammer. The rapper who built his image on toughness and control reportedly broke down when he heard his son's message. Those who were in the room say that T.I. tried to hold it together, but his eyes filled with tears as he listened. For a man who had spent his entire life being the rock of his family, it was one of the rare times where his strength gave way to raw pain. Tiny, on the other hand, couldn't hide her emotions at all. She sobbed openly, clutching her son's hand, whispering that everything was going to be okay, even as fear consumed her. King's siblings were also shaken. Growing up in the same household, they often distanced themselves from King's wild behavior, but in that hospital room, none of that mattered. They weren't thinking about old arguments or embarrassing moments, they were thinking about the possibility of losing their brother. For them, his final words weren't just emotional, they were haunting. When news of King's last message reached the public, it spread like wildfire. Clips of him speaking circulated online, with fans quoting his words and sharing how deeply they were moved. Even people who had been harsh critics of King admitted that they saw him in a new light. Social media quickly turned into a flood of prayers, with hashtags trending worldwide. Pray for King Harris became a rallying cry, and for once, the internet wasn't laughing at him. It was crying with him. But as supportive as the reaction was, there was also an underlying tension. The fact that King felt the need to deliver such a message raised terrifying questions. Was his condition truly that serious? Were doctors unsure if he would survive? Or was this just his way of finally letting go of the walls he had built around himself? No one outside the hospital knew the answers, and that uncertainty only made the situation more heartbreaking. In what would become one of the most heart-wrenching and unforgettable moments in recent memory, King Harris opened up like never before. Behind the bravado and the headlines, behind the reckless persona that the public loved to gossip about, King revealed his deepest, most vulnerable fear. The fear of being forgotten. Or worse, remembered for all the wrong reasons. He didn't want to be just the bad boy or the wild kid always in trouble, the one who made the tabloids for fistfights, reckless stunts, and controversies. No, beneath all that chaos, King wanted the world to see the real him, a guy with a soft heart, big dreams, and a fierce loyalty to the people he cared about. His words weren't just empty promises or public relations fluff. They were raw, honest, and hauntingly genuine. This confession struck a nerve with fans around the globe. It was as if King had pulled back the curtain and let everyone glimpse the man behind the myth, the human behind the headlines. People suddenly saw that King had been battling more than just external forces. He was fighting a war within himself, a war to rewrite his story, to be known for more than his mistakes and outbursts. For many, that last message wasn't just a goodbye or a fleeting moment of clarity. It became a powerful lesson about fame, pain, and the misunderstood complexities of public figures. Fame. King's story reminded us, is no shield against loneliness or inner turmoil. The dazzling spotlight often masks the shadows, and even those who seem to have it all, the money, the fans, the glam, can be drowning quietly beneath the surface. It was a wake-up call for everyone who ever rushed to judge him from afar, who saw only the scandalous headlines and never bothered to understand the man behind them. King's message forced a painful reflection. How easy it is to cast stones without knowing the full story. How quick we are to label someone based on moments of weakness instead of the full journey. And beyond the emotional weight of his words, it was a stark reminder of life's fragility. How in the blink of an eye, everything can change. Moments that once seemed distant and abstract suddenly became immediate and terrifying. As King was finally wheeled into surgery that tense night, the atmosphere was thick with fear and uncertainty. The hospital corridors echoed with quiet prayers and restless pacing. T.I., usually the composed and strong figure, was reportedly pacing anxiously, unable to still his nerves. Tiny, holding a rosary tightly in her hand, whispered prayers with a desperation that spoke louder than any words could. The rest of the family clung to each other, their faces pale, their eyes searching for hope amid the growing dread. Hope amid the growing dread.